Hi there, my name is John, and I am coming to you from Souk, British Columbia in Canada, and what I will be teaching you today is editing an imperfect MIDI audio recording to correct for timing errors using Cakewalk Sonar 8.5 Producer Edition. So here we are in Sonar's default track view. For this lesson I have created two MIDI tracks. One is a drum track and the other is a jazz organ. It will be the jazz organ track that we will be working with for the purposes of this lesson. So while the track view is great for setting up your tracks, it really doesn't help us much when it comes to editing MIDI. So what we need to do is switch to the piano roll view, and there's the button for the piano roll view there. So let's have a look. Here we are in the piano roll view, which is ideal for MIDI editing. If you need to move around on the MIDI keyboard, on the right is the scroll bar. As well, at the bottom right you have the zoom tool, which allows you to zoom in horizontally so that you can focus in closer on your timeline. Before we start editing MIDI notes though, we should have a listen to our recording as it stands to see what's actually going on here. So let's have a listen. So to tighten up this performance, which was sloppy in some places, we're going to take a two-pass approach, where we're going to manually correct the really big errors, and then we're going to use quantization to tighten up the whole performance and bring it closer to the grid, which is the division in musical time that we are working with in our performance. In our case, we're using 16th notes. In this recording, there are three things I want to edit manually before I do quantization. These three notes are too long, and there's an extra note over here that we need to delete. Thirdly, I held the end too long, so I want to shorten that up. So let's start with deleting the extra note. There are two ways to do this. One is to use the erase tool, and the other is to select the note and then hit the delete key. I'm showing you how to do it using the delete key because this allows you to select multiple notes at a time and delete them all at once. So to manually edit notes that are too long, we're going to do it in two steps. We're going to select the notes as a group so that they're edited together, and then we're going to edge edit them using the PRV draw tool. Now we want to make sure that the snap to grid is off because we do not want all of our notes to line up with the grid. We want to give it that human feel still. So we start off with the PRV select tool to select them. We click and drag to select the notes, and then we switch to the PRV draw tool and we drag the edge in a bit. Now we want to compare with the next set of notes because the next set of notes was right. So we'll move a little forward and have a look. And yes, it needs to be shortened just a bit more. So now that we've cleaned up the worst offenders, I want to show you how we could quantize to bring the notes closer to the grid. So the first step is to select all the notes that we want to have quantized, and in this case I want to select them all. So we use the selection tool to select all the notes, and then we go to Process and Quantize, and a pop-up window gives us the Quantize dialog. For the duration, we want 16th notes, and under Change, the two key things we have to look at are the MIDI event start times, which should be selected, and the note durations, which in this case we should not have selected. And lastly, we want to look at the quantization strength. Now this is the amount that the system will pull the notes towards the grid. Using a quantization strength of 100% will result in the notes being pulled all the way to the grid. But in this context we want it a little more human sounding, so we're going to set the quantization strength to 20%. So let's do that, and let's have a listen.